5-1. Good evening, everyone. It's 6:30, so I'd like to call to order the Salary Committee. Members of the committee are Mr. Pace and Mr. Rippus and myself, who are all present, and Mr. Lonzer is the alternate. Purpose of tonight's meeting is to discuss non-bargaining employee wages. If you recall, last year, there was a one-year raise increase, and we are back revisiting because of that 1 year to discuss. I have had several meetings with the mayor, the service director, HR, auditor, discussing this issue with what we're gonna do. Obviously, pay and money is probably I think anybody's least favorite conversation, because these are all humans we're dealing with, and this is a tough one because we know everybody on this list, but we also are here to do a job for the taxpayers. So you wanna do both. I mean, this is a tough one for me, and I think everybody involved with that, because we do have some things going on with the budget, which everybody's aware of, that we have to take into consideration with that, and coming up what we feel will work and be best for the city going forward, while still paying our employees a fair and reasonable wage for the job they do for us. And I think we all can agree that they all do a wonderful job for us. And we'd love to be able to pay them more and more and more, and more than they get paid. I mean, we'd all love to do that. But at the end of the day, we can't, so that's what we're gonna be discussing today. I kind of broke out, you got some extra information that I handed out this morning, because I want to talk in subjects first, because I met with service director and the mayor, and we talked about a few positions that we would like to do what we would call salary adjustments, that we believe are a little bit lower than what's going on with what's available in other cities, municipalities, townships, to keep these individual positions fair. You know, so that would be the number one at the top. It was the first page. You have the mayor's executive assistant, the wastewater superintendent, the water supply and distribution superintendent, assistant wastewater superintendent, assistant water supply and distribution superintendent, and the building and zoning administrator. You will notice, if you look back last year, we also did an increase with the building and zoning administrator. But that job, it's my belief the mayor's and service director has become a lot more in-depth than it used to be. So that's why you do see that one in back-to-back years, to keep that with what the job entails. It has become a lot more time-consuming job than it used to be. Ron, will you agree? I mean, do you want to say anything about that one?
Sure. Just with what happened in this last year with all the zoning changes we made, I think I used the thing of, be one of those ones where if we was in a different sector, you'd give that person a bonus of what he did going through that. So it's truly trying to do that and really just being noticed for what he did during that time. Between him and Wendy Moeller, they was the real drivers behind that, and he's the one that did most of the detailed meetings with Wendy when it went through that process. And I think that, like you said, last year was an adjustment, but again, just what he did this year and the detail that I've seen him work with in the last year, I think is justification for the slight increase that he would be receiving.
And I think everybody in this room can agree that he's worked his butt off, and he's gonna have work going forward to write these new codes going in.
That's right,
help-
more
Help us as
responsibility.
council and help everybody understand in those. But I just wanted to point that one up, because you can look at what we did last year. So Ron, do you wanna go, I mean, we met and we went over some, I mean, we did have, rather than me bring you a list of 90 cities, Ron and I went through that. I mean, we do believe that the wastewater and water supply, and I agree with Ron here, those do need to be bumped a little bit because they have the certifications and what those are getting paid. And a lot of areas can't even find them, with the certifications that our individuals have. So that's what's on there, and you guys can, mark that down, ask for any questions on that. What's next is, we have a few positions that are the lower paid, what we would consider part-time. So that's the next page on page 2, and then also that would kind of include the elected officials page, which is page 3, number 4, 5, and 6, that they would be getting slight bumps, and then they would have nothing proposed for 26 and 27. For those positions, that would be the council clerk, the safety director, the council president, all the council members, and the treasurer. And the reason I put elected officials on its own page is, if you notice, Marvin, he's not here right now, he's at his son's soccer banquet with my son, on that. But he did do a legal memorandum for me. He has brought this up 2 previous times in council that I wasn't a part of, going back to 2013, about the Ohio Revised Code 731.07, that prohibits city council from granting any interim raises with elected officials. So he believes we've done it 2 other times, and we'll have to do it a 3rd time because, again, we did the 1-year raises next year. And then what my goal would be to go forward is, if I remain on council or for anybody that's on council going forward, I'd love to get those elected officials on a 4-year look rather than the non-bargaining that we're doing at 3 years. That way it stays. Now, I realize we got 4 council members and 3, but I think, the 3 biggest pays are the mayor, the law director, and the auditor, and I think that's the term you really want to look at it. And then with this, I think the 4 council members, we can probably keep doing it every 4 years, but that'll be up for debate later. So that's why I did the elected officials separate. They are not, and it's just the way my mind's wired. I wanted zeros at the end for no other reason than that's how my mind works. If you say, what's your mayor make? I don't have to say $112,483.74. And I think even if Mr. Baker was here for the Times Reporter, he would probably appreciate to write that in the paper too. So, but he's not here. So anyways, that's why those are ending in zeros. So they don't work out to be exactly what's on the next page, which is the proposed, what we are looking at doing for all the rest of the non-bargaining that are not listed on the sheet 2 and 3, but they are on sheet 1. The raises would go on top of these salary adjustments, just to be clear on that. We would be looking at a 3-2-1. So 3% in 2025, 2% in 2026, and 1% in 2027. You take into consideration what happened in 2024, the 7% raise, that works out to a 3.25% raise over 4 years, which gets us, I think, in line with what's going on, more just nationally and statewide with raises. We can certainly continue in the future to look at proposed salary adjustments if we feel there is a position that is out of line, like Ron and I did in the mayor on the first 6, because those, that can happen. But we're not giving 7% raises or large raises to every single person that isn't underpaid. We can continue to try to adjust those as we've been doing for those positions, because I know a lot of people bring up that we didn't get raises for a lot of years. That's been brought up in meetings that I watched before I was on council. It's been brought up many, many times. And I think the way to correct that is by doing these salary adjustments rather than just large to everyone, because everybody isn't off. I spent some time digging in. I know there was a previous one that I don't believe everybody is off on what they're getting paid, and we can't just give these large raises to everybody. I'm way happier to sit down, if I stay as salary chair, sit down with the mayor and service director every year and the auditor, and we look at each position and figure out if there's 1 or 2. There are still a few, clearly with what I'm presenting today, that are behind. And we need to get those caught up so we don't lose these good workers. But at the same time, like I said, it's tough because, you know, we have to take care of the taxpayers, but we have to take care of our people that are running the city too. So with that, I think I talked quite a bit here. I'd like to open it up for comments from my committee. Questions, comments, to see what you may have to say or add.
I just have a question for Service Director.
Yes,
Are
sir.
both assistant positions filled currently?
Yes, they are
Okay.
now.
Because I know they weren't for a while.
Yeah, and if I could speak to that a little bit, with 3 out of the 4 positions, or between the assistants and the superintendents, each of them have double 3 licenses. So that means that they got a 3 in wastewater and a 3 in water, which if something happens, let's hope that doesn't happen, that they could go and cover for the EPA, if something happens. Water-wise or wastewater, they can, you know, intertwine with each other. I'm fortunate enough to still have my Class 3 wastewater license. So there's enough of it, but to have 3 of the 4 people, we don't know how lucky we are. They hold dual licenses, and they're still working here for the city of New Philadelphia, not went somewhere else.
Right.
The last superintendent I worked for at the wastewater before I left, works in Twinsburg now. Just to give you an idea of where these guys could go or anything like that, but, the last superintendent at the wastewater before I had left, went to, he went to Twinsburg. And so, with these licenses and the dual licenses especially, you can really just about go anywhere you want. I know it's moving, I understand it's maybe just to Cuyahoga County. Go to the OTCO website, if everybody doesn't see that, OTCO website, and it's got these licenses on here and the salaries these guys can make and going somewhere. And with that, we have our chief operator up right now, it's in the wastewater, and our chief operator up at the water. And we don't have anybody with a 3 to move up to them, and we got it on the OTCO website, and there's no one coming this way. Yeah, and you go to the continuing education classes, and most of the gentlemen and some women are my age or older, and there's none of the younger folks getting into it. So, again, we've got guys that are in there now that can see us past the next 10 to 15 years most of these guys still have. So I think with these adjustments that can be made, gives us that longevity, and they can stay there and be there and not be me. I mean, just myself is worried about it, and I think everybody in this room should be worried about it, because it's a big shoe to fill, especially with the guys, especially like I say, 3 of the 4 have twin 3s, and they're about as rare as a unicorn in Ohio, if that tells you anything. But that's my opinion on that.
Steve or Dan?
Go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, thank you for all your work on this,
Yes.
Steve. I mean, Chris, this is really in-depth and appreciated, and kind of bouncing off the service director there, especially with these certified licensed positions and stuff. We don't want to be the training ground for them to get their license, get certified, and then move on to somewhere else. And that's definitely, I'm in line with all that, for sure. Because they're definitely hard employees to find.
I'm doing some calculation. I'll be right with you.
Mr. Crandall, will this create a salary range? So if
So-
somebody does leave,
So this is, I've actually been talking to them about, so my plan is to, and I should have brought that up, thank you, Mitch. My plan is to create a salary range for employees going forward, but I didn't want that to water this down. So I plan on trying to bring that like first quarter of 2025. So it doesn't get, and this conversation's enough tough one. So what has happened to the mayor and service director, if they hire someone, whether they are straight out of college or they have 20 years of experience, they have to pay whatever's on here, because that's what we have set. So we have been discussing the ranges, and I have in my mind an idea, but I have not started it. And I'm hoping to have something to present in first quarter of '25 to kind of start to begin to set a range for these positions so they can adjust for the expertise of someone, or, so we're not paying everybody top dollar. For, I think right now, we tend to have pretty good longevity, you know, tends to someone retires here, you know, and that's the only time we have someone new. So I don't think it became a huge issue, but it needs to be created going forward, which I know I've heard ranges. I think even Cheryl brought them up before when I've watched previous meetings. So it is something that is in the future, and I hope to bring for discussion. And like I said, '25, so.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that becomes a recruiting tool for us to be able to say, here's where you are, here's where you can go, that kind of thing with steps.
Absolutely.
I jokingly said that I was doing some calculations, because before I came in, I had spoken with a labor attorney who negotiates for a lot of the cities up around Cleveland and such. And he said, you know, we're doing a lot of 2-2-2s. Okay, 2-2-2 and a 3-2-1, they come to 6.12 over 3 years. It's the same amount. So we're in line with what other cities, even big cities, are doing at this time. So I just kind of wanted to share that.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Just to dovetail off the range, and when this journey started some years ago, in 2019 on the salaries, it was originally supposed to be a floor and a ceiling, just like a range. So you've got new people that come in, and they don't get top dollar, just like you said. So I'm glad to hear you say that we're looking at
Yep.
that. The other question I had was, a couple others. Missing on this list is, of course, the law department, like the assistant law director, prosecutors, and I think Marvin sets the salaries for them, right?
From what my
And health
understanding, yeah.
department.
So the health department, thank you, because I was gonna bring that, I have talked to Vicky, and I've let her know what I am proposing. I have encouraged her to match that. I do not sit on that board,
Right.
Mayor and Tom do, and I know that's still a little new with how that works with council, because they are their own governing body.
Right.
If I answered that, if I'm correct with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they actually voted last year to do the 777, from what I understand.
Correct.
Even though city council did not, they voted to do 7% for 1 year. So I have let Vicky know, what I am presenting, and then I would follow up with how it goes, but I'm sure the mayor
And they
can talk to her as
already
well.
did this 777? 7% for 3 years?
They have not done any, they voted it in, Mayor may be able to speak better than I can on that.
Yeah, last year, the health board voted for 7% over the next 3 years.
Okay, so
But
they've
I've-
already got their raise.
Yeah.
They
But
got 7% like
I've
everybody else
told-
last year, they haven't got their
And-
raise
Yeah.
for 2025.
I recommended to
But they
the,
voted it in for, but that's where I'm confused. I'm
That-
hearing,
Let
Let
the
him
mayor
just
talk.
Let him
Yeah.
explain.
I recommended to the board at the last meeting that they hold off making any kind of, taking any kind of action on, wages at this point till we see where we are, with the other, non-bargaining people.
And they meet again in November.
Yeah, the second Wednesday of November.
okay,
Is that-
so they haven't.
But I will tell you, the health commissioner, because they receive so much grant money, she has the money in hand to justify a 7% raise next year. So. And you also have to remember municipal court is watching the bargaining units to see what we give the bargaining units.
And the judge decides those raises.
Right.
Correct?
Yep.
Same thing with the law director, he has his own.
If I remember right, didn't Marvin say last year, you guys are gonna have to help me out with this, everybody on this side of the table. Didn't he just say, give me a sum, and then he was gonna put it out to everybody?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I thought, I remember that. So he'll just ask for like, and I don't know the number, just say it's $4. He just asks for, give you $4, and then he disperses it and raises who he wants to. He just asks for a personal money,
Just sort of
right? Wasn't
a
it?
total amount.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought.
And then he
I just couldn't remember. I
Then
thought
he
that's what.
distributes it how he sees fit.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
And that's through the budget process.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, and that's what he does with it. I just was remembering that.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick question on the health department. I was looking at their financial report from 2023, and they get a total of about $186,000 in grants. Their salaries and fringe benefits are about $709,000. I know the fringes come out of that when it comes to the salary, but those numbers don't seem to be adding up.
Well, all the grant money that she has might not be reflected there because it comes in during the year.
Okay, well, I think this was at the end of '23, so
Okay,
I just was asking. 'Cause I
yeah.
don't- I know some of that's a little confusing when it does come in, when it's applied and all that
Yeah, I
stuff.
mean, it might be a good idea to have the health commissioner come in and explain, her justification for
Good
that.
question.
Yeah, I would like to have her justify it to all of us.
With my
I
understanding.
can tell you that because I consider and say if she's gonna go at 7%, that I may not be sitting there with a grin on my face, just to be honest.
And
Well,
it's my understanding though, and correct me if I'm wrong, that still will be in the budgeting process. That's not through the salary committee. or
right,
is it?
that would
Correct?
just be in the
Yes.
budgeting process,
Yep.
right?
Just so we stay on what's
Yeah.
today, because we'll definitely be having budgeting meetings coming up. Any, Tom, Mike, any,
Thank you for all your work.
auditor? Would you like?
Well, let me just.
Oh, go ahead.
You obviously have done a lot of work on this. I didn't expect, even though the law changed and everything else, I didn't expect us to be doing midterm raises for elected officials. And it's a good gesture. I think it's a good thing to reevaluate.
I think
Does
we're,
anybody else have thoughts on that?
so the mayor was on an email that I sent to Marvin because I asked about it, because I was unaware. And typically I would be against it as well, Tom, but with the 1 year, I do believe that for the size of our city, that in my belief, and just my research, and I'm one opinion, that the mayor, law director, and auditor are due a raise before it comes due. That's my belief and why I asked about the revised code 73107, so that we would be able to do that. I would not encourage us to continue to do that in the future. That's not my goal. My goal would be to do it on term. But this is why I asked to be able to do it now. So-
You did some research for comparative stuff. And if you see it necessary for the mayor and the auditor and the law director, but those bottom three, I don't feel pressure for council members and the council
No.
president.
Absolutely not,
You know,
or the treasurer, but it's
Yeah.
those are very minimal, and
It's
there's,
very minimal.
and there's no raise
As
the
a
next
matter
2
of
years.
principle, I'd say we could forego that.
Yeah, but just to talk, like you said, you wanted to do the four, we've been talking about that for Cheryl, how many years we talked about going to a 4-year system, and that's like the town across the river does that now.
Mhm.
And so that's, so,
They
you
go
s-
by this revised code, and they do not go
and if you go by,
against it.
and, I'm not saying, because that $35, whatever, is not gonna make a difference to me, but it's the principle of that, not getting it, because it adds up over a period of time, and to keep up with OPERS and everything else and stuff. That's-
Yeah, and I wouldn't.
I mean, the 1 year, I like that idea, then we all focus on changing that,
And go ahead, Cheryl.
I have one question for you and one for the auditor. The community cares coordinator, is she now full-time? Because she was part-time?
I believe that happened last year, I think that happened in
She
2000.
part-time? Full-time.
That went,
Okay.
that went into, in effect this year, January 1, right?
No, she's still part-time,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So
Or
this,
that, I should say that position is still part-time.
so the rate should, this is a full-time rate.
That was adjusted prior, yeah, they was adjusted from 22,600 to 45,320 last year.
I thought she,
I
No, that,
thought-
I thought she went full-time.
yeah, that's my question. Is she full-time or part-time? Do you know?
We asked that happened last year, but it didn't. So that's probably why that number was in there, because it
Right.
was asked for, but the auditor told us the money wasn't in there.
Okay, so
Back then.
this one would be, she's part-time now, but this is a full-time rate, so that would,
So I'll have to confirm that. I could have the wrong information in here, on that. I'll confirm that with Lacy.
okay.
But she's still part-time.
Good question. Thank you. And I know I had emailed Lacy, and I'm wondering if I missed that one.
Was she making the 22 or the 45?
I'll have to get back to you guys.
I think she's at the 22, Mike.
22,
I believe
Right.
she is.
The
I believe what
45 would be a
happened was what-
full-time.
what, safety director's talking about.
You
They
tried.
did, and then so they had a adjustment, and then they had the salary, but councils said we couldn't afford it.
Okay.
So she would be the
She
2260.
dropped,
Right.
stayed where she was at.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Right, Greg, if I remember
Yes.
right. I remember. It's all coming back to me. It's foggy, but it comes back.
I will confirm that before. Hold on, I got it here. That was my mistake. Yes, it is. She's at 25,832.
Yep.
So that was my typo on that. I took the sheet from last year and missed that one. Thank you, Cheryl.
Can I ask a quick question for Heather? And you probably need to do research on this. When we first started on the journey up till last year, 25.1% of the enterprise revenue, that's water, sewer, and trash, is used to pay the salaries of the mayor, auditor, law director, mayor's administrative assistant, HR director, service director, and his administrative assistant, IT, and 2 assistants in the auditor's office. Can you get the percentage of the enterprise revenue that's used to pay those salaries?
Yes, I can look at those. I think I know percentages, but I can't remember which percent out of each fund.
Yeah,
But
just
so
a
I'll get
total.
those.
Okay. And another quick question, what percentage has the income tax gone up? Do
We're
you
about
know, or
5.
can you let us know
About 5.3.
Yeah, 5.3%,
so far this year?
yes, so far this year.
Thank you.
Is there any other comments from anybody else? Public? So if everybody's okay with what's submitted and my correction, which I will make sure Lacy looks at this again and make sure I don't have any other mistakes. Thank you, Cheryl, again. I would like to move forward with getting resolution drawn up if that's okay with you guys, and if, I guess I'll ask if anybody would agree to make a motion to that.
I'd make the motion to take your chart here and get a resolution going with Marvin.
Second.
All right. So I got a motion to, we'll pass it off to Marvin, get it back, and we'll come back next week. We'll set up a meeting for salary. So set up, so we'll be moving it to Marvin, to set up the resolution of what's on here, what's the correction of the CARES coordinator, and placed on, we'll bring it back to salary committee and look at that again. So take a vote to do that. Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Mr. Rippus?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Any other matters need to come before salary committee? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And we are,
7 straight out.
7 o'clock.
there we go.
You're on.
All right, it's now 7 o'clock, and we're going to call the Public Works and Economic Committee to order. Members are Mrs. Ramos, Mr. Rippon, and my alternate, Mr. Slick. We only have one item to discuss tonight, and that's proposed resolution 9, and it's involves airport restaurant lease. I got to start off by applauding the mayor for doing the hard work on this one, and doing the negotiating and getting us to where we are. I mean, of course, in any negotiation, you're not gonna get everything you want or what you expect and stuff. But I think the key part of this one is getting it to where it's a flat base, which I think would be good for the city and good for the tenant. And we got it on a three-year proposed lease at the $2,600 term, which at that time we could revisit it, and we talked about it instead of just having an amendment to the actual lease and stuff, that we can go, give us plenty of time to dig in and just come up with a completely new lease, so that way, there's no gray area. Not that there really is now, but that lease is probably from, I don't know, early 2000s, probably, something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One O'Holly.
Yeah, so, and it's been amended several times on there and stuff, but I mean, like I said, I think in 3 years, we can revisit that and put a little bit more work on that time. I'll open it up to comments from the committee. Anybody have any comments? Mrs. Ramos?
The meeting we had before, and thank you everybody to the hard work. I think you had said the lowest on, restaurant square footage rental was $10 a square foot, right?
It was in that ballpark, yeah.
Okay, and there was about 4,000 square foot to this?
Yes.
Okay. So we're kind of subsidizing that business.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I mean, if we would put that kind of an increase on there, that'd be like a 50% increase in his rent, and I don't
Right.
think that's fair necessarily for the tenant, I mean, and we went back and forth with different numbers and stuff, and like I said, the mayor did a good job on this, and I think, like I said, the key component for me is that flat rate,
I like the flat rate.
is because, for insurance for us, what happens, heaven forbid, Calvin gets sick or something and they have to close for a month, well, we're not gonna get any rent that month. Well, now we're guaranteed we're gonna get our rent regardless of what happens and stuff, there's not that. And that kind of goes back to the old lease, like we don't, it's all kind of, so this way kind of, at least we know that part of it, we looked at different things with the negotiating process. We were gonna increase it after a couple years or after a few years, and over 5 years, getting it to the point where it needs to be, but I think we'll still be able to get closer to that. We just didn't want to shock them into a 50% rent increase, right off the drip, right, because, I mean, we have a successful business in the airport, which we're very happy for, that it's thriving and stuff, and I think we'll get there, as far as, like I said, you're not gonna get everything you want in negotiation. So, anybody else on committee? No? Anybody on council, have any?
Good work on it. I think that's one that we definitely wanted to keep them there.
Yeah.
And we also didn't want to go too crazy that we drove them out after many years of not having a stable tenant there. So I'm glad we were
Exactly.
able to come up with what seems like a fair number, and hopefully we can continue a good partnership with them. So,
Mr. Walker?
Is there a clear outline on responsibility of repairs for leasee, leaser?
I mean, it's in there, but it's not necessarily where it needs to be as far as,
Yeah, it's not spelled out in detail.
Okay,
You know, we own the building.
correct.
We are the landlord. So, if there's an instance where we're doing repairs inside, that would be responsibility of the leasee. And, you know, we maybe would share the cost, but maybe not. You know, it depends.
Okay. Yeah, I know we had talked about that.
yeah, and like I said, I think that in that, when we go to 3 years from now to do it again, I think we can clear it out and spell it all, everything
Right.
out, you know, what
A
exactly.
little clarification,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. But, you know, Hootie Bear is more than willing to work with us on anything that needs done.
Is there any reason to consider updating that lease a little bit now? Was the 2,600 change? Just so it is written out more clear or no? Or do you feel good about it?
Well, I feel good about it. I mean, that's something we can work on
Okay.
over the next 3 years.
Because I know they've been a fantastic partner, that's what, you just
Right.
always worry, like what you just said about someone gets sick and heaven forbid
Yeah,
he's out of the
and you gotta
equation.
remember, you know, this building, we subsidize this building.
Absolutely.
You know, the park pool, that's a $40,000 a year loss to the city,
Yeah.
for instance. So, we subsidize what we own.
Okay.
So, you know,
That's
it's
why I
the
just
same
wanted
thing
to
with
ask
the
the
building
question.
out there.
I feel
Yeah.
good. If you feel good about it, I feel
Yeah.
good about it.
That's kind of where I ended up on. you know,
Yep.
I mean, like I said, it's not everything I wanted or everything I hoped for, but I think it's
Well,
something,
you know, it's a work in progress.
it's a work in progress.
Yeah,
I can handle that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Anybody else on council?
Aren't we all?
No?
I'm good.
Yeah, thanks for putting that all together.
And they're wanting to get this, the new, pay increase to start January 1st. So, the mayor's asking us if we can suspend the rules and have it put on first reading. So is there any action to be taken on?
I'd move that we put,
Oh, wait.
Oh,
Well,
sorry, Mrs.
you-
Ramos.
Oh, this raise, okay, sorry.
This, not mine.
No, no, no.
committee, Cheryl.
Talked about that.
I thought I heard a move to adjourn from him.
I move that we put it on the agenda tonight. Resolution
9.
2024.
Okay.
And we don't have to say what we have to do with it.
No,
But
no.
we-
No.
Okay,
Just a
and we'll
second.
take a vote. Mrs. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Ribbon?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes also. So, is there anything else to come before committee? Seeing none, have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Ribbon. At 7:07.
This meeting of New Philadelphia City Council will now come to order. Will you please rise and remain standing for the invocation and pledge of allegiance? Mr. Walker.
Bow your heads, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day, beautiful sunshine in this wonderful city. Father, be with this council this evening as we work just towards the goal of running it and making sure everything is smooth. Be with us as we make decisions. Be with our safety forces and employees. Just keep them safe and have your arms wrapped around them. We pray all this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, and welcome everyone to our October 28th council meeting. We'll start off with roll call.
Mr. Kreinbell.
Here.
Mr. Lanzer.
Here.
Mr. Pace.
Present.
Mrs. Ramos.
Here.
Mr. Rippett.
Present.
Mr. Simmeling.
Present.
Mr. Walker.
Here.
All right, everyone here. Everybody's had a chance to look at the agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda tonight? Mr. Lunzer?
Yes, Mr. President, I ask that we add Resolution 9, 2024 to the next agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
Thank you, Mr. Ribbit. Any discussion by administration, council, roll call?
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Rippett.
Yes.
Mr. Kreinbell.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Simmeling.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
All right. Are there any other additions to the agenda? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the one added item.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you,
I'll
Mr.
second.
Walker.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Simonic. In discussion by administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Simmeling.
Yes.
Mr. Kreinbell.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Rippett.
Yes.
All right, agenda has been approved. Minutes, everybody's had a chance to review the minutes from our last council meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move.
All right,
I'll second
second,
it.
thank you, Mr. Granville. Any discussion or administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Simmeling.
Yes.
Mr. Kreinbell.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Rippett.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
All right, minutes have been approved. Correspondence, Ms. Courtright.
To Clerk of Council from Sally Thompson with the Ohio Department of Commerce dated October 21st, 2024. This is a response to an email sent by Law Director Fate titled Notice of Intent to Withdraw Objection, Permit 7740776-0010, Class C1. Ms. Thompson wrote the following: the division is in receipt of the attached. The division requires that a withdrawal be signed/submitted by the Clerk of Council. If the Clerk of New Philadelphia City Council could please respond to the email and confirm that Council would like to withdraw the prior objection, no longer request a hearing on the matter, the division can officially process the withdrawal and remove it from the docket. I responded with an email confirming that Council would like to withdraw the prior objection and no longer request a hearing on this matter. To President Kemp from Law Director Fate dated October 25th, 2024. This is an email titled, Please assign to Mr. Simmeling's committee with Resolution 18, 2024 as the attachment. President Kemp asked Mr. Simmeling to take this issue into his committee. And to Council and Administration from Mayor Daley dated October 28th, 2024, the mayor's report. And that concludes correspondence for this evening,
All
Mr.
right.
President.
All right, thank you, Ms. Courtright. All right, we'll move into our administrative reports. First up, Mayor Day.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members, fellow administrators, and guests. A couple things I want to highlight from the report I sent to you earlier today. The erosion of the municipality's home rule by the Ohio legislature and Ohio's housing crisis were two of the issues discussed at the Ohio Municipal League's annual conference that I attended last week in Columbus. In the session on the state of Ohio's home rule authority, presenters warned that state lawmakers could continue to chip away at a municipal self-government or home rule by making changes to the Ohio Revised Code that preempt the local authority given to cities and villages by the Ohio Constitution. To make matters worse, they said, courts in Ohio do not understand home rule, This is something that we're all gonna have to pay attention to, and when you have an opportunity, bring this up to our state representatives, in the House and in the Senate. In the session entitled Ohio's Housing Crisis, a home is where a job goes at night, Presenter John Melchi of the building industry of Central Ohio gave some alarming statistics that showed, for instance, that only 50% of Ohioans can now afford to buy a home, and nearly 50% of Ohio's housing stock is more than 50 years old. He compared Ohio to Indiana in terms of housing affordability and development, showing that Indiana has the edge with a lower average property tax, fewer zoning restrictions, and an easier annexation process. I was encouraged to hear that among his recommendations for improvement were zoning code revisions, which City Council can adopt tonight. Work is underway with the city's 4 bargaining units to negotiate new labor contracts. Initial bargaining sessions have already been held with the police and fire units, and opening sessions with the AFSCME service and clerical units are scheduled for next month. The current 3-year contracts with the bargaining units expire on December 31st. As you can see here, I've invited members of the New Philadelphia Schools Issue 8 Committee to tonight's council meeting to share information about the bond issue, which voters will decide on Election Day, November 5th. In my mind, there's no question that New Philadelphia's academic facilities are aging and outdated, particularly the elementary schools. If improvements aren't made, New Philadelphia's ability to remain competitive with other communities in Tuscarawas County will diminish. Families could look elsewhere for their children's primary education. Quality school facilities keep families in and attract new families to a community. You can just ask any realtor that you know and they'll tell you that. My administration has been working hard to make improvements that will maintain our quality of life, create a pro-business environment, and position the city for future growth. To me, it's imperative that improvements to our schools be included in that effort. And going forward, the city and New Philadelphia schools will work together to make that happen. So now I'd like to give the remainder of my time to the representatives of the Issue 8 Committee to make their presentation.
Where do you want me to stand? All right.
Well, if you're gonna talk, we need to project the microphone.
Yeah, you can go.
Oh,
Yeah, that'd be perfect. You
oh, click from here?
Yeah.
And why don't you introduce everybody that's here for the county so we know who you are?
Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity. I'm Jen Schrock. I'm on the Board of Education. I'm also on the committee for New Philly Schools. Tonight, we have Superintendent Amy Wentworth and Treasurer Julie Irwin, who will present factual information regarding Issue 8. And then we have Kyle Altz and Stacy Godfrey. They're going to come up and present on Issue 8 in the committee. We also have, I don't know if he's going to speak or not, he might chime in, but we have Committee Treasurer Paul McEwen here as well. So thank you for this opportunity to be here. We greatly appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Day, for giving us this opportunity. I think most of you know that I'm Amy Wentworth, and I have the privilege of serving the New Philadelphia City School District as their superintendent. And I'm here tonight just to share a few of the facts about how this bond issue came about and what this bond issue represents. And the first thing that I want to share with the council tonight is that this truly came from the community of New Philadelphia. We started this process over a year ago by holding open meetings for anybody and everybody from the community who wanted to participate in determining what our master facility plan for the district would entail. And from the beginning, we committed as a school district that this community would be driving this process, that the people who came to the meetings would be the ones that determined what this plan was. And I am very honored and proud to say that that committee determined the plan that has led to this bond issue. We started with everything and anything on the table, from remodeling to completely starting over, and ultimately the committee came up with the buildings and the plans that led to the issue. So I'm going to turn it over to Julie Irwin. She's going to talk a little bit about what's on the ballot, and then I will return and tell you a little bit more about it.
Thanks, Superintendent Wentworth, and thank you all for letting us come and speak tonight. The ballot issue that's on the ballot for November 5th has two questions on it. The first question is $72 million, a 5.9 mil bond. It will build the construction of the elementary in total, and so that when the CFAP kicks in, which is the OFCC, they will come back and pay us 56% of that elementary. So that will allow us to do the complete project for the high school as well. So this bond issue will build the whole entire district for us. The second question on the ballot is the PI levy. We've opted to do 1 mil, which is about $627,000. The OFCC requires a half mil to put on the ballot in order for districts to be able to maintain their buildings. We opted to do a full mil because we know that there are districts who haven't been able to do the amount of maintenance that's required on the new buildings. All of that will, both questions will be one vote on the ballot, and all of that will be a cost of $20.17 to a person with a $100,000 home.
So let me talk a little bit more about what that bond issue of $72 million will do. Essentially, what the ask is of the community is that voting on this will build a brand-new pre-K through 6 building that we will put at our current South Elementary School site. Right now, I'm sure most of you realize that we have a preschool and then we have 5 elementary buildings that are grade banded. This leads to a lot of challenges. Not only are the buildings themselves aging with an average age of 80 years old across the district, but having all these separate locations for parents to get their students to on a daily basis produces a lot of transportation and logistical challenges for families. So by building one building on a site that the district already owns, this will improve our safety, first and foremost. Our buildings currently do not meet modern-day safety standards. It will reduce administrative and transportation costs, both for parents and for the district. It will definitely simplify busing. Right now, we have buses that go to all the locations across the district. They transfer into every residential building, and then kids transfer from there all across the district. I, for one, don't even know how the transportation supervisor figures it all out, let alone the parents who are trying to get their children to school. One building will simplify all of that. It will prevent our siblings and families from being in multiple buildings across their elementary ages. We have some parents that have children in at least 3 different school buildings across the district, and they need to be there and for the start and end times that are the same, which is a challenge if they're not using school transportation. And then finally, it will not require our students to adjust to a new school building every 1 to 2 years, which is currently the case. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit more about why the South Elementary site was chosen by the committee. The picture that you see on the screen now is kind of a mock-up. It is not the final plan, but it's a mock-up that shows that a building of the size that we would need does fit on our current space. And I know it's a little bit difficult to see, but if you kind of look where the home field or the home base area is for that softball, baseball field there, you can see a dashed outline on the picture. That is our current South School. That's where the current South School is located. And as you can see, we could build a new building behind that area that would be of adequate size. And during the construction process, students that attend South School would not have to be displaced. So school could continue on, we could build the new building, and then once we were able to transition into that new facility, we would then go back and demolish not only South School, but all of the other elementary buildings. Then that land could be sold or returned for other uses across the city, which could provide housing ultimately, which is something that we need, more affordable housing in our city as well. One concern, if you could go back just one second, please. Nope, okay. One concern that I've heard often expressed is, what about the transportation challenges? What about the traffic? Already down at South School, in the morning and the afternoon, there's a lot of congestion, there's a lot of traffic. And while it's true, that is true, I can tell you part of the bond issue will include a traffic study. And we have also included money in the budget to improve the infrastructure of the roads. And working with our pre-bond architect, they have also assured us that by adding multiple entrances into the school site, which you can see this sketch has several different entrances or exits, that will help to get traffic off of the main roads and will help to alleviate the congestion. Now, again, this is not the actual plan. This is a mock-up. It might not look exactly like this, but it kind of gives you an idea that it could work and what might work. That just leaves the high school and middle school, and that is a work in progress. What we are doing with this bond issue would be fully funding a new pre-K through 6 elementary building. That is through the expedited local partnership program with the state of Ohio, who has agreed that if we do this, we are locked in that they will turn around and at the point when we become eligible for assistance, which is estimated to be within the next 5 years, they will return 56% of the approved cost for this new elementary building to the district. In addition, at that time, they will provide 56% of the cost toward a new high school and middle school. Those two pots of money will be enough to fully fund a new high school and middle school. So the ask for the bond issue is fund the elementary building now, and then on the back end, probably in about 5 years, we will have the funding to put up this new middle school and high school. The location of that is still yet to be determined, but we're going to do that, again, arm in arm with the community. The community's going to help to decide what that's going to look like. We still have time to figure that out because the funding's not going to be available right away, and that is the pledge of the district, is that we are going to continue to engage with the community and the city to help determine what the best location for that new middle school and high school would be. And again, just to reiterate, the state funding is locked in now. They're going to pay 56% of the cost of the approved cost for these buildings. That means they're paying over half. That is hugely significant. This district could not afford to put up new buildings without this state assistance. We need them to partner with us. That means that we have 3 chances to pass this bond issue and not lose that 56% funding. That is why we are starting this process. We also anticipate that if this doesn't get passed in the near future, it will certainly become more expensive later. And so timing is important. It's important to address the needs that we have, and that's why the committee decided to put the bond issue up this fall.
Before you go on, can I speak to a couple things? Two things that I want to point out is, people keep saying our buildings are beautiful, and they are. They're well-maintained by our staff, our teachers, our custodial. Everybody does a great job. Within the last week, we've had an elevator break twice. If you know anything about the cost of an elevator, it's crazy to not only fix them, but hopefully we can get that back working for our special needs student. We have a heat exchanger at York that is cracked, and it provides heat to, if you can picture York, York is kind of like it's an odd-shaped building, let's just say that. So a portion of it has a boiler in it, and the boiler, the heat exchanger attaches to that boiler and heats the rest of the building. That heat exchanger is cracked, so we have to find another solution to provide heat to our students. We also have a crack in a clay pipe underneath Welty Middle School that if that goes, we have to dig up the floor of Welty Middle School to correct it. So the things you see are wonderful, our buildings are beautiful, but the things that you don't see are what we have major concerns with.
Anything else?
I think that's all. I would be happy to answer questions about that anyone might have related to the facts. And if there are no questions, I can turn it over to the committee. They have a few other things they want to share with you.
Any questions? Cheryl, yes.
So eliminating the elementaries, demolishing those buildings, are you going to be eliminating principals and other secretaries and other administration, since there's one building?
Yes, we do anticipate that we will need fewer administrators in a single building. And so while we haven't determined exactly how many positions that will be, absolutely there will be fewer.
Amy, would you say that South School right now is probably peak traffic, and wouldn't it not diminish some with this new school because of the way you guys are doing your busing?
Yes, we also expect that to be the case. South School, well, traffic at all the elementaries are difficult, and certainly that's true at South. But without parents having to drive their students or feeling like they want to drive their students to school and making multiple stops, what we have heard from families is that they are more likely to put their students on a bus if they could all get on the same bus and go to the school together and not have to get off buses and change buses. If that is in fact the case, which we expect that it likely could be, traffic should probably be reduced because instead of having multiple parents bringing students, we have 60 or 70 students coming in on one bus. And that's certainly going to be a much better situation down at the south side.
And just one last thing that I think I remember you saying before, that with passage of the levy, there is dollars there for the demo, right? They don't stay, it's part of that money, correct?
Absolutely. There are dollars in the budget to demolish the current existing buildings. So the district does not have an intention to leave them there and let them become an eyesore, but instead we would like to demolish them and turn them into productive use for the city.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, sorry, one more quick question.
Uh-huh.
So if somebody wants, an organization would like to buy one of the old elementaries, and repurpose it to like a community center or something like that, would you still be able to retain the building, or do you have to tear them all down?
We could retain it. We have funding in it to demolish them, but the possibility would exist that we could retain them if we wanted to.
I will say, once this traffic study is completed, we're going to sit down, not only with your consultant, but you, and make sure that the traffic pattern makes sense, and will minimize disruptions around the elementary school.
Amy, I just want to thank you for your leadership on this. You know, I went to the same school, and my dad went to the same school, and now my sons go to the same school. And that makes for a wonderful Facebook posting to say that grandpa went here, dad went here, and now buddy's going here. But that is a lousy commentary that our kids are going to school in buildings that are over 100 years old on our community, a community that's very much looking forward. We're bringing in new jobs at the Old Times Reporter building. We're bringing in new jobs with the what's the plant down there?
Adam Motors.
Yeah, Battle Motors, and just high-quality jobs. And the only piece that's missing, I think, is the education piece. And I'd really like to see this get done, particularly in light of the fact that we're having to cancel classes because of heat, for crying out loud. This would just be great. My only question to you is, when this passes, next Tuesday, how long, what's the timeline till everything's done? We've got a new high school, middle school, and we've got the elementary school done. If you already addressed that, I apologize, but I didn't catch that.
No, absolutely. The elementary school would be expected to be functional within 3 to 4 years. Takes time, the next steps, and I think we're going to talk to that here in a few minutes, but there's a selection process for the architect, and they have to do the traffic study and the designs and then the construction. So that's a little bit of a lengthy process. The timing on the high school and the middle school will be dependent upon when the state releases their funding. So we anticipate that will be within the next 5 years and could be much sooner than that. At that point, then that 3 to 4 year cycle will start. So it's going to be a few years before that's done.
My kids might squeak in under it. That's pretty cool.
Are there any other questions I can address?
Any other questions?
Great. I'll turn it back to Mrs. Schrock to.
Superintendent Wentworth and Mrs. Irwin. So I just want to discuss what a yes vote covers. So, like Mr. Pate said, this passes on Tuesday. We're all excited. We're not just going to sit around. The Board of Education will immediately bid out work to different architectural firms. We'll make that hire, and then we're bringing the community back. We're going to get everybody back in the room to talk about design, priorities. What do we want to see in our preschool through 6th grade building? Once the plans and the design are approved, that is when we will have the traffic study. Traffic studies are astronomical, so that is suggested to wait until you have a bond issue passed before you have a traffic study. Plus, we don't have an accurate design of the building, so that's not going to give us the full picture. So once we have that design, the traffic study will be implemented. I am one of the parents who, my son's a 4th grader now, but during his time at South, 2nd and 3rd grade, I did not feel confident in his ability to walk or ride his bike to Central, where he would have to catch a bus to take to South. So I drove every day, twice a day, to drop him off for school and pick him up. We tried to carpool when we could with other families, but with work schedules, that's a challenge. So like I said all along, if there was a bus that came to 3rd and more that I could put him on and it was just on the bus to school, you get off at school, you get back on the bus, you come home, we would have been busing this whole time. Once the traffic study's done and we worked with the city and we kind of know what's going on, then the construction will begin. Once construction is rolling with the preschool through 6th grade building on the south side, again, we're gonna call the community back together. Please, let's talk about our 7th through 12th grade site. At this time, I'd like to invite Kyle Alt up to come, and he's gonna give you a closer look at what our buildings really are. Did you wanna stand up here, Kyle? Would that be easier for you?
I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Thanks for giving us this time to make clear what we're seeing and what we really care about. Our team's motto has been that we want to honor the past and build the future. It's not either or. And one of the enriching experiences for us has been the fact that we've got to learn a lot about the past. And if you haven't seen our website, I think it's on one of our slides coming up. I highly encourage you to check it out. You're going to see some stories, some excellent buildings, just a rich community. And as you look at it, you'll see also we're at that kind of time lapse in our history where this is the kind of thing this is normal. This is about the time we'd say we're ready to start doing the next thing with new buildings. And one of the assignments that I had as a member of this team was I'm a photographer, and I was given access and was escorted through the schools in order to try to make clear the issues that we see in the buildings. Be careful not to capture any kids' images, respect privacy, always with escort around the buildings. But it's easy to hear about the schools, it's another thing to see the schools. So that's a little bit of what we wanted to provide for everybody. And so with that, we started off with visiting York Elementary School, and it was, apparently we have sound with this. So we went through the boiler room, and this is original of the building. As you can see, it does have a significant amount of age with it. I'm gonna pause for 1 second though, if you don't mind. I'm guessing we can turn off the volume on this. Extraction. Okay. See if that worked. And so, as you go through the building, and you're gonna see a theme here in the building, is that when they were built, they were state-of-the-art, but like an old car, that eventually becomes a bit of a money pit. There comes a point where you save money investing in the next expense. And one of the things I saw as a recurring theme was failing infrastructure in the buildings. You'll see more of that. Another thing is the constant repurposing of spaces to meet demands of the community, because every hallway I walked through looked similar to this at all the schools where you saw desks out there, because they need new spaces to break out and for teaching. It's a distracting environment. And in those hallways, you have open windows at every single school, because it's too hot during the summer to keep the school windows closed. But then in the afternoon, they have to close them because the humidity makes the building too hot at that point. And you have large industrial fans at the ends of many hallways just to enable circulation. And so it's different than how it used to be. It's just not what it used to be and how it was used. Let's see if I can just continue. As I mentioned, many of the spaces have not only been repurposed, they've been over-repurposed. At every single school, a stage that was created for presentations and for arts is storage, administrative space, classroom space. They all have been used in a non-optimal way. And so some of them have even been boarded up to make them better storage, because they're not going to be able to use them for their original purpose any longer. And so some of these images here are just from York, but you'll see that being a recurring theme at other schools as well. So continue to the next slide in a second. Not most of the classrooms, not only do they have the desks in the hallway, but you can see they also have to have the school backpacks for each of the kids out in the hallways as well. Creates for a cramped environment because the school buildings in their classrooms are too cramped. And then, as we all know, there's modulars at every single building. And it's one thing to know about that. I knew about that as a parent. I've got 4 kids. This next year, we'll be one of those families that drives to 3 different school buildings. This year, I drive to 2, and it takes me an hour to get to work. It's gonna take longer next year. And I'm not as concerned about that. I mean, I have a flexible enough job, I can do it. Not everybody is lucky like me to have a flexible job that makes that a possibility. But what does bother me as a parent is knowing that rain or shine, winter or heat, my kids are walking out in the elements instead of in a contained environment. And that's just a standard that's too low for me, that my kid is not in an environment where I know that they are safe.
Can I speak on that real quick?
Please do.
And sort of, there aren't restrooms in these modulars. So when a child needs to use the restroom, they leave, and they leave unaccompanied. My son, his job, he was at a modular last year, his job, the first little bit of school, was if a classmate needed to use the restroom, he had to take the key, walk them outside to the building to let them in, and then come back. So I don't really think I need to highlight too much how dangerous that is.
Yes. And one of the fascinating things, I got to be in some of the early meetings, it's been amazing how open-handed the committee has been, that everybody is invited, everybody can speak into this. We are a community, not just parents. And one of the most eye-opening moments was when we found out how expensive it would be to get current buildings up to code. And if I understood the study correctly, that once a building surpasses the 60% mark, to get up to code, it's just better to demolish and build a new building. York, it would cost more than 100% to build it up to code than to just demolish it and build a new building in its place. That's the state of that's in. One of the less glamorous parts of the assignment was also checking out the septic tank. And while thankfully it is separate from the building and students are not exposed to this, it breaks down easily. And any problem we point out about the school district in isolation sounds like a small deal. What made this a powerful experience for me this day is getting to see all the issues and recognizing the compound effect and the toll that takes on the staff that has to continue to stretch themselves, to stretch dollars to meet different needs of buildings that have been incredible for our community for so many years, but have reached their limit. And this is just one more example of that for the York. And also I'll mention for York, they had to spend $20,000, if I understood the figure correctly, on a gravel drive, because the cars that had to park on the side of the road in order to try to get into the building were causing the side of the road to break off, and it was damaging vehicles, and it was no longer safe. And so no matter how long we try to push the problems further down, we incur more costs. Even the ability to get to one pre-K through sixth grade building is estimated to save $20,000 to $25,000 a month in bus gas alone, because we spend so much money getting 20 buses to commute kids that are full-size buses between buildings, and it's highly inefficient. Just the way we continue to try to make what we have work wastes money. Let's jump to this next one. At West Elementary, as you can see, there's a massive crack that splits through this wall, exposing just some structural issues that continue, not only in that building, but in a number of the buildings. One of the disheartening things that I saw happen at West was one, the sensory room is surrounded by the boiler room. They had to put a mobile air conditioner in that room, and it was already a hot day. You walk into that room, it's sweltering. And not only is that going on in this room, but it also has IT software and hardware in the corner, which continues to make the room warmer, because that's the only space to have for these items. We don't have space to continue to stick stuff, because when that building was built, they did not need those kinds of capabilities. And yet today, here we are, and we're trying to make that work. Also, what's disheartening about this building is none of our buildings are ADA compliant, not even close. And to build an elevator for any of the schools is 6 figures entry fee, not even taking into account the ongoing expense of that. And so to try to get our schools to meet the needs of kids who have a hard time navigating is really disheartening. To get to the lower level of West, a kid who cannot brave the stairs has to go out the front of the entrance, around the side of the building, around the modulars, and around to the back of the building. So halfway around the building, despite whatever the elements may be, and also on a, basically what I would call a homemade ramp, that they would need assistance to get down outside, just to make it to the second level. Again, these are things I got to see on this day, and it was highly impactful for me because I got to see it firsthand. And, I'm sorry, let's get back. Our goal is just to make it clear, to just make it, this is that room I described next to the boiler room. You just continue to repurpose rooms and make them the best that you can. And it's not due to anyone's negligence, it's just the fact that times have changed, technology has changed, structural needs of buildings have changed. We continue to do the best of what we have. And I appreciated even your question earlier about would this change at the administration? You know, would we need fewer people on the administrative teams and fewer principals and such? And one of the best parts of my experience that day was how every principal was excited to see us there. They're not worried about their jobs. You know, it was encouraging to see them be excited about the prospect of a better environment for the kids. And it was very selfless and inspiring. And so this just shows some of the pictures of what I was describing, the homemade ramp, these steps that if a kid would brave them with crutches, or if they had a cast on, it's less than optimal. It's icy out, obviously they don't want to take that route, so they have to go around the entire school building just to get from one level to the next. I'll try to move forward a little bit quicker. I believe that's all the images. Oh, and then, yeah, photos fail to capture reality, but it's just not safe. Kids are very exposed when they have to go outside and are easy to spot when they need a transition from classes and go to those modulars. This library is repurposed. That's a class space that's built into one of the libraries at one of our schools at East. And so there's instruction happening in there as kids are trying to get books and read. There's only one single bus lane for drop-off. Obviously, congestion is an issue. There's also termites that have become an ongoing problem as of this year that our teams are doing the best that they can to mitigate that. And then an interesting problem was that the sinks do not provide cold water. They only have hot water tap in the classrooms. And many, many expenses pile up such as that. So that was East Elementary. Then you go to Central. This one was a very interesting one. So I've driven by it many times. I did not know why there was a fence blocking off what looked like half of the back of the building. Found out that is a roof to a lower level, and that it continues to crumble in. And on a daily basis, they have to go through there and sweep out the crud that basically falls from the roof onto infrastructure and different mechanical parks that are down there. And there's water damage down there that you'll see in just a moment. But kids cannot access that space because it is unsafe for them. Also, it was fascinating to find out that that was supposed to be the high school, and then World War II happened and plans changed. Some interesting, you got to check out the website, there's some interesting history. So water damage is visible around the electrical units, like I said. It continues to be an issue, and honestly, as I walked down there, it just felt like we were on borrowed time. With a lot of the elements we have, just future costs will continue to mount as these items age and we continue to face weather. You can't even buy a door that is to that particular dimensions and shape. So they keep old classroom doors because they don't make them to those specs anymore, just in case the door breaks and they have to replace them. They have them stored along the basement. They have to get incredibly creative to hold old stuff that no longer can be replaced. And then, like I mentioned, this $200,000 quote to install just a lift. I said elevator, it's actually just a lift. So that would be Central Elementary itself. We'll continue ahead. And then South Elementary, this is one of those things that our team has discussed. We know there are security issues about our schools. We want to be wise about how we communicate about the security issues that are at our schools. Gun safety is one of those issues that has continued to become a rising concern for many communities. And at South Elementary, it is especially a concern. And this is an environment that was not created in order to protect against outside intruders. And it is not an environment that would do well with that these days. In addition, as I walked through any of the hallways, I could hear 4 teachers teaching at a time because, as you can see along the tops of the classrooms, it is exposed to the ceiling, and they do not have hard doors, they have curtains. And so I do not know why that was seen as a wise idea in the 70s. That's when the building was built. That's what we have 50 years later. And so as you're walking through there, and I've got children at the school, they don't only hear their teacher, they hear all the teachers around them. I believe it's advancing, there's just a second here. Yeah, so lack of ceilings for the classrooms creates unsettling environment, sound and distractions, and free flow. And then, as I mentioned earlier, this stage and all of them continue to serve as either office or instructional space or storage, because they continue to run out of space at all the different buildings. And the school has 3 hallways, no lockable doors, no control access. I think it's pretty clear why that is concerned. And then there are 3 outdoor modulars converted to classrooms and 4 students for elements, just like all the other school buildings, regardless of weather. And obviously, it's a very exposed situation. So that's South Elementary.
While she's going up there, I just want to reiterate that this is just one vote, and it will cover all of our kids, preschool through 12th grade. It's essentially a buy one, get one option. If this does not pass in the 3 attempts, we will lose our spot, we will lose our funding, and like Superintendent Wentworth said, it's just going to get more expensive. So take it away, Stacy. Thank you.
I just wanted to say my husband works at the hospital, and the last 4 people to join his practice alone have chosen to not live here in town. One went to Tuskegee, one went to Canton, and one went to Dover. And then one lives an hour away, and he chose to just stay where he's at and commute. So, and that's just in one office. So the hospital is a big employer, and I think it's fair to say it's probably happening throughout the system and also with other big employers in town. So a school would be a big draw to try and get people in here. I know the hospital has specialties and like specialists that they're unable to recruit here, and it would help to draw more people into town and into the community.
I think Mayor Day too, you had touched on that in your introduction. We're all a community, we're responsible for each other, and like Stacy explained, it's our schools that keep professionals and their families in New Philly to shape our future. You want to click on the next slide there. Our website is yeson8.kids. Please visit it. Committee worked really hard. I just want to shout out to Chad Milburn. He was the one who created this website. We are also on Facebook, Yeson8. Kate McEwen, she is in charge of our social media and has been doing a fantastic job. Does anyone have any questions for us, the committee? Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, was struggling with the presentation there and kind of got lost at the end, but I just wanted to echo what Stacy had said a second ago too. I work at a church. We happen to be in a spot in the county where people who are brand new and looking for a church find us from all over the county. And similar to what Stacy said, I get to have regular conversations with folks who move here, and I'll ask them, hey, what community are you moving to? And they'll usually be a young professional family. They have kids. And almost inevitably, I'll ask if they're moving to New Philly because I live there and I have Quaker Pride, and they're choosing a different community. And I'll ask them, why are you choosing a new community? And inevitably, they will mention the schools. And, you know, I'm not just trying to think about my children who are currently in our schools when I bring this up. I'm concerned about our community's future, as was also mentioned earlier in this meeting, because we're only in the school buildings for the next 14 years. So I'm not just thinking about the next 14 years. I come from a community that was a small town in Illinois, and it's no longer a small town. It almost ceases to exist anymore. And I think that for a community that shrinks, it is hard for it to recuperate, if not impossible. And a school system is one of the key elements that ensures a growing community, because an aging community, as time continues, needs new young families to come. And it's either jobs or it's people moving back to be with their parents who will come here. However, unfortunately, the trend that we see anecdotally is that people will choose to commute rather than set roots here. And financially, that takes a huge toll on us. And I think the big issue that we face with this is the fact that we feel the price of a levy immediately, but the future concern of a community that would atrophy is far out there enough that it's easy to miss. And it's the kind of thing that once it does happen, though, it is hard to recuperate from. And so, anyway, just want to share that.
Anybody have anything else?
Any questions?
I just want to say thank you to you and your committee for all the time, effort you put in it. I know I've been on the emails and you've been emailing out the updates and everything, so I appreciate you and your committee's time to try to get this approved, hopefully pass.
Thank
So
you so, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
1 weekend a day, right? November 5th, so get out and vote. Thank you for spending your time and coming tonight, and also congratulations on a big win Friday night. That was a nice win, so as we move into the playoffs, so that sure won't help either, yeah, won't hurt either, so get out and vote next Tuesday. So again, thank you for coming. You guys are welcome to stay for the rest of the council meeting. If you need to go, that's fine as well, so we'll move on. Mayor Day, you want to finish your
Mr.
report?
President, that concludes my report.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, move on. Mr. McAbeer, you gotta follow that now, so.
Good luck with that, right? Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. I want to go over a couple of big projects first and another few things that had happened in the last couple of weeks. The KSU Connector Trail, we're about to see tomorrow, they're going to start paving. So what that means is they're going to start from Shelmar Drive and work themselves towards the university. So that'll be tomorrow. Avoid that area because it's going to be rough. It'll be rough for the next 10 days. So again, Shelmar Drive to the university, approximately 5 to 6 days paving out there. The only time we not see paving out there will be when the temperature is below 45 degrees. That's the temperature that they need to have before they can start paving. And then once that's done, they're going to move from Beaver Avenue and go from Beaver Avenue to Shelmar Drive. Again, milling will start tomorrow, and they'll start the paving back in a couple of days after that. So again, going to be a tough area to navigate through. They chose to do Shelmar Drive to the university is because of there's still some drive approaches to do on that south side, if everybody noticed that. So that gives them time to finish those. They started some of them today. We'll finish them, most of them, in the next couple of days. Let them set up, pull the plates, be ready to pave that, I would say middle of next week. So that's what's going on in the KSU Connector Trail. Also then on Franklin Square, we're ready to start paving Bank Lane, 4th Drive, and Front Street. They're sitting in 4th Street at this time. All the work's being done in there. They look to pave that next week. So again, that area will be congested a little bit next week to get through. But you'll still be able to go through on High Street. The big snag we're going to have in that is when we open up
and blow open that intersection of Fourth and High.
Yeah.
It'll be completely down for days. So we'll get through that part. Front will be open at that time, so it'll help us a little bit to get through that. But again, as I said from the start, you know, these was the 31st, and you gotta give them the 5 or 6 days. Contractually, you gotta give them. Well, we're up against it now. So now they're trying to get this paving done, as we see. So that's why it'll start tomorrow on the connector trail. And I think next week they'll start the Bank Lane, Fort Drive, and Front Street. So again, that'll start late next week.
Hey, Ron, where are they gonna shut High down to direct that traffic away from that then? Are they gonna do that down at 5 Points?
They will probably come up through, and they're gonna do it at Bluebell.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll do it at Bluebell and bring them around front
Okay,
and come down that way.
okay.
Yeah, if I remember that, that was what the plan was on the road closures, is what they'll do.
Okay.
They'll bring everything down front, that's why they're trying to get that paved.
Yeah.
To bring everything through there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then,
And up beyond Shelmar, then they're gonna do half at a time? Is that what
correct,
they're gonna do?
yeah, from Shelmar to the university, get that all the way done, all milled, all filled, stripe it, come back, go from Beaver to Shelmar Drive. That's the way they'll do that, correct. Any questions on that first, I guess, and then I'll go to the other 3 things I got, then we'll go from that.
So what's the alternative
416.
route? Go all the way down
Yeah,
front.
I would probably go down
416 or
416.
416, go around that way?
I would, you know, I'm down there, I'm gonna probably do 416.
Okay.
You can
Yeah.
talk up Ridge and come back.
There you go, Ridge. Matter of fact, I talked to Craig Butler this afternoon, he's like, Ron, that's gotta be starting. I said, yeah, I told you I'd tell you, I'm sorry I didn't. He lives out there, and he's gonna, everybody that goes down to the annexation building, he said we're going around.
Yeah.
He's gonna go around. It's gonna be a tough gig for about the next 10
So you
days.
can also use 250.
Yeah, I think a lot of people come from the south side, they're gonna use 250.
Yeah.
How about if you come from the northwest side,
416.
416?
Yeah.
416
Or you
use
want, I mean,
250.
by all means, go high, but you're gonna sit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't just, go whichever way you like, but just be expected to be delayed, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And then a couple other things we had done last week. If you look down at the boat docks were removed last week. Moved those for the wintertime season. So if anybody wanted to go down there, the ramps are out to 416 and the waterworks. Also, if you look up on our website, we do have a leaf schedule up now, because that'll be next Monday we'll be doing that. So I urge everybody to go to the website. I believe it's typically like they're gonna go down South Broadway, usually go down East High, that type of thing. But look on the website, it is on there. Ray updated that today with Tammy Polka, so that's all set. And then from that day until December 31st, we're gonna be doing leaves. That's what General Services does for the next 2 months. And hopefully we keep the weather as it's been lately, we've been able to get it done. Again, like I think I said last meeting, I remember doing it one time in April, that we had such a brutal winter, and it just makes it rough. So I hope we can get to that done.
You're not gonna be able to, you can't do leaves out High Street, East High, then, can you? That's all gonna wait
Sure, yeah, I
for a
mean,
long time.
yeah, that may be a bit, sure. Also, last week, the Welcome to the City sign, used to have George Lawrence take care of that a lot. Naturally, if anybody knows George, he's getting up there in age, so he's passed that to us. So we took that on, got to get up there with him, he showed us a few things. They would take the bucket truck up, drop a ladder off, because the ladder's gotta go through the building, which is impossible. But long story short, we replaced 21 bulbs out of that sign last week with all LEDs. And you know LEDs last, but what's happening is the sockets are going in them. So we're gonna get some, I forget the stuff it's called. There's like a grease that can go in there and try to prolong that. So we're gonna go up there before next Monday, try to get up there and grease a few of them, fix them. But that is all fully lit, besides 2 of them that we gotta replace the sockets on. So I just want to bring that up too. We got that done last week, so any questions?
Any questions? Yes, Mr.
I got a
Page.
question, Mr. Service Director. I think I ask you about every 3 months maybe on this.
I
You probably can
I
guess
know
what's
what you're gonna
coming.
ask. Dan Lorenz talked to me today.
Yeah, the
It will
cross,
not happen this year.
next
He
year.
just told me today, and I'm glad you, because I forgot to bring that up. And what he's gonna talk about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is the crosswalk beacons at Broadway and Tuscarora and Second.
And he has one more, I think it was in Columbiana, maybe that didn't get done too. And the way the funding was, it didn't line up, and I said, that's fine. So we're gonna do it, it'll be in the.
Sometime next year?
Yeah, the first quarter, or the second quarter of next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm glad you asked that, because I asked him today, I said, hey, I need to know this, and he talked to me the other day.
With the Dover Philly game Friday, it was pretty wild around there.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, but he did get back to me just today, so.
Good deal. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to Safety Director, Mr. Popham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report. However, I would like to just make an announcement that maybe a couple meetings ago, I brought up that the police department was putting a new sign on the front of their building. That sign is on the building. It does have power to it, and the letters they are able to change color, and right now they have the color in pink for Cancer Awareness Month, but it's one of the little improvements that does make a big difference to the front of the building. And that's up and working. And that's all I have.
All right.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. Had the kids out Saturday for the Halloween and saw multiple officers out handing candy. I mean, the city was really busy with
Yes.
trick-or-treaters, so they were great to interact with. I
Yes,
think they gave out a lot of candy.
Even the chief was out and several other officers and they also, and I was on North Broadway and there were more kids than I've ever seen on a trick-or-treat night.
Yeah, I was really impressed. We ran into the chief when I was out, and to see the chief out there in their squad car passing out candy, I just thought that was terrific.
Yeah.
That spoke volumes.
Good weather.
Great
Yep.
leadership.
And they got,
Any other comments?
and they got put to work during the game when Ricky said officers needed at the 30-yard line. The game Friday, I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yes.
Front and center, yep.
I don't know if I've ever heard that one. but-
Yeah.
All right, move on to the auditor, Mrs. Denham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
All right. Treasurer, Mr. Gerber.
Yes, I received notification from First Federal reference our CD. The CD is maturing November 4th. I discussed this briefly with the auditor and the mayor, and there's approximately $685,000 that's in it. So on November 4th, we're gonna not renew the CD and place that money into our general account, okay?
All right.
So the total amount is $685,941.94.
All right. Move on, Treasurer. Excuse me.
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Ramos.
So, why are we, replacing that into the general account, general fund, instead of renewing it in a CD?
It was just one CD, and I talked with the auditor and the mayor briefly, and it could be best used more inside of the general account.
So it's not going in like a money market, it's going to our general fund?
Yeah,
They can
well,
just-
it's going into our general account.
Which
that-
is?
Which is,
I guess what can it be used for, I guess, now that it's out of an investment? What does that leave it open to be
whatever the
useful?
auditor or
Well, we're
you
just putting in
people
the general operating just until we get the budgets and everything all complete, make sure we have enough money for the rest of the year before we lock it into another CD. So hopefully, once we get all the budgets and everything and make sure we're not gonna be too far over budget, we can put that back into a CD.
But we already had the budget
It's not done.
planned out for this year,
We're over budget.
so we're short.
Yeah, some of the departments are going over budget, and so I just said if we can hold off on locking it into a CD until we can make sure, and then put it in.
So there's a chance that we could have to, basically, we're cashing in an investment to pay. Is that what we're getting at?
Mhm.
I mean, that's what I'm taking this as, there's a chance we're gonna have to cash in an investment to pay our bills. Is that
Well,
what
he
we're
just
saying?
asked if we should renew the CD, and I said if we can hold off until it's renewed, or until we get the budget,
Okay.
hopefully we can lock that back into a CD.
But that can't be spent without council knowing?
We would have to reappropriate it.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, we want Law Director, Mr. Fate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple of things on my agenda for this evening. As I'm sure you're aware, we had an accident not too long ago at the corner of Ray and 4th Street when there was a school crossing incident where 2 students got hit. Some people have come to me asking whether or not we should increase the penalties for hitting somebody in a school intersection. I will leave that up to council. I'm not gonna make a recommendation on that, one way or the other. I spoke to the chief about that, and the chief had analyzed the video feed of what had happened there. She feels, in her professional opinion, that it was unlikely they even saw these kids when they were crossing into it, and felt just awful. And speaking as a father who avoids that intersection like the plague in the mornings, if you get at that intersection and you need to make a left turn on a 4th Street, it's gonna take you 10 to 15 minutes to travel a block, if you're lucky. And so I don't go near that at all. And one of the things that the chief suggested was that the city would probably benefit from a left turn signal there. I'm sure there's grants for that sort of thing, and there's also, not just grants, but I don't know how much money we still have left in the opioid fund, that if we could do something like that, it might behoove us to look into doing that, based upon my conversation with the chief. Even if, we pass the levy and there's a new school, that's way down the road, where we're gonna have to deal with this on a regular basis. And I think that, in light of the fact we literally had 2 kids get hit there, and I know how bad that intersection is, I know Mr. Popham knows how bad that intersection is, I know the mayor knows how bad that intersection is, and that it might be something to look at. That was something that the chief suggested to me, rather than raising the penalties for it.
Yeah, Dr. Fate, I discussed with the service director, because we may already have the equipment, but if not, he's the person that you should go through in order to get it.
I'd be happy to do that. The main reason I wanted to bring it up to council was, if council wants to contemplate increasing penalties for something like that, that was the main thing I wanted to bring up. I didn't want, after I talked to the chief, she was the one who suggested that, but yeah, absolutely, I'd be
Yeah.
happy to talk to the service director about that. That's
I'd
something
like
we
to
can do.
add to that is, I talked with Chase Hostetler after that, which is our AEP rep, and everything up there is an 8,000 watt sodium. As a matter of fact, you should see, I thought he'd have that done by the end of this week. He's gonna put 22,000 watt LEDs up there, all the way down. I think there was, don't quote me on this, but I think there was either 12 or 18 lights up through that whole area that'll be redone. He gave me a decent price, so we're just gonna light for light again, so.
That'd be great.
That's 14,000 lumens up there per light, so probably gonna look like Burkefront Lake Airport, but it should help that.
Yeah, that would be
And
great.
and it's, the thing is, you can't prevent all accidents.
No, you can't.
No matter if you put a turn signal up there or put these lights up there. There's just sometimes it's just human error.
I just think traffic would flow a little bit smoother and reduce the chances of an accident. At least, that was the opinion of the chief, and when she said it to me, I thought, if somebody has to drive that, yeah, that's probably correct.
Yeah, let's see what these lights do. Like I say, everybody look around.
I don't get up that way much, you know, because I'm in town, but, and I did tell him to let me know, but he did think it would be done by the end of this week.
Okay.
He had some low stock on a couple of the 22,000s, but he thought I was like, man, if you can, that'd be awesome. So, if Chase can do it, he will do it for me, so.
All right, great. And then the other issue is also related to the police chief, something I've been working on. I wish this was my idea. It's not. It's the police chief's idea, but it's one that I support wholeheartedly. I think it's a wonderful idea, and it's something that her and I have been working on very closely for the last couple of weeks. Across the country, there's a hard time hiring new police officers, and the city of New Philadelphia is no different in that regard. And I have looked into in the past trying to do lateral hires. That's where you hire somebody from another police department and they just shift in. Because of the civil service laws, we can't do that because we're a city by statute, so we're limited in that regard. That's something we might want to work on our state legislatures to give us a little bit of a break on that as a way of being able to hire more officers. Because what happens is if you've got somebody at a different police department, they don't want to apply and take the civil service exam to work here, or, you know, if they're at the sheriff's office or something like that, because then they could lose their job that they have, and they could potentially be blackballed there as a result. And they don't want to do that, but a lateral hire would have allowed us to do that. We can't do that with the current civil service laws, so that was an avenue that was closed off to us. Chartered cities can, because they can write their own civil service laws. We can't. The idea that the chief came up with is that we would hire non-certified officers, and they would sign a contract that they would agree to be employed here for at least 1 year, and after they complete their training, and the city would pay for their training while they're going through the program. It's about $6,500 to pay for an officer to get his training completed. So that would be an incentive for them to come here, and that's what I sent out legislation-wise that is in Mr. Simlink's committee. What that contract does is we agree to pay for it if they drop out of the program or they don't take up employment here, they have to pay that money back to us. And I think, don't quote me on this because I think the chief's gonna address this, I think there might even be some grant money to pay for some of that would be helpful. But I think that's a really good program. A couple of things that I had to look into to make sure we could do it before I sent the legislation was, I wondered if we were able to do that on our own, or if there are any roadblocks with regards to civil service. There are no roadblocks to civil service. You still have to take the civil service exam in order to be a non-certified officer. So it can be anybody that's taken the civil service exam that's looking for a position here. And then the other thing that I had to look at was, does this affect our union contract? And is that something we would have to deal with in negotiations, and it would have to be part of the union contract rather than being done legislatively? It does not affect the union contract because non-certified officers are not part of the union. So we're clear on all those fronts, and once we get that legislation before council, I'd love to have the chief come in and address it. I think it's something that would be another arrow in our quiver to try and get hires in here to protect the city. That's all that I have as far as my report goes. If anybody has any questions, please ask.
Oh,
I didn't get a chance to review the legislation yet, sorry, but, so we'll pay $6,500 and they're guaranteed to be here for 1 year. But if they leave day 366, they walk away with the $6,500, they don't have to pay us anything back? Is that how it's gonna be worded?
Well, we can change that if you want to change it. Right now, that's the way
Well, I'm
it's
just
worded.
thinking
and-
6,500 is a big investment to only be guaranteed 1 year. Like, if it can whittle down, like,
Well, they'd actually be here for 2 years because they'd have to be here, the training takes about a year. They'd have to be here for
Okay.
1 year
and then,
and then another year as a certified police
so
officer.
it'd be 2, okay,
So it'd be 2 actually.
yeah.
I have a question off of his question. If they're not certified police officers, what do they do as non-certified police officers while they're going to school? As
I
employed?
prefer to let the chief answer that, but my understanding, there's a number of duties that they can do, one of which is dispatch.
Okay.
I know they can do dispatch. I don't know what the other ones are that they can do, but
I
I
figured
know
it
the
was a little
chief's
free.
prepared to address that.
Okay.
They can actually train as police officers. They are not allowed to carry a firearm. However, they can go to the range and qualify and learn how to fire a firearm. I mean, they can, you know, there's a lot of things they can do other than just actually taking a cruiser and going out and making an arrest.
Right.
But they can ride along and, I mean, there's just, and once again, they're just basically gonna be going through the whole
Almost on-the-job
internal
training.
process of how to be a police officer in New Philly.
Okay.
Which gives us another advantage because they're learning on the job here
Right. Oh,
instead
yeah.
of someplace else.
I agree.
Mrs. Ramos?
So can you clarify what you mean by non-certified?
Yeah, they have to pass, it's called OPATA, is that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
They have to pass OPATA and become certified police officers in the state of Ohio. And once they do that, then they're certified, they can carry a firearm and do all the ordinary duties that a certified police officer can do.
Yeah.
But that whole training and process cost about $6,500.
There is actually a section of the administrative code that just relates to the cadet program. So it is in civil service law that, that departments are allowed to do this, but it takes approval of the council.
And I think OPATA stands for Ohio Police Officers Training Academy.
Yeah.
Academy, yeah.
Mhm.
Does that happen through you?
It could. Yeah, we have a certified academy as long as we get enough people to run it.
You have to have 10, right?
Yes, that's the goal.
That's
10
the
students.
catch.
In all
10
honesty, if we had 8 who were already guaranteed a commission coming out, I think they'd let us run.
Cool.
Are there any other questions? Thank you. Move on to our commission reports. First up, Planning Commission, Mayor Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Planning Commission is scheduled to meet the second Tuesday of November at 1 PM here in council chambers. That's provided there is something on the agenda, and I would expect that if council would be willing to pass the new zoning code tonight, that will be our topic of discussion
All
at the
right.
next Planning Commission meeting.
Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. McAbeer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board of Zoning Appeals will meet here in council chambers on November 12th at 5 PM.
All right. Airport Commission, Mr. Lonzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
All right. Park Board, Mr. Pace.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick report for this evening. Saturday's gonna be a busy day at Tuscarora Park. We've got the Dover New Philly Kiwanis Club's gonna have their pancake breakfast from 8 to 11. We're also gonna have the first annual Fall Trout Derby from 8 to 1, or 9 to 1, excuse me. So bring the kids out, that'll be a great event. And then we also got the Tuscarora Park Foundation will have their chicken barbecue from 11 to 1 on Saturday as
11 to
well.
1 on Saturday.
And those proceeds will benefit the inclusive playground project that is ongoing as far as fundraising goes. So weather's gonna be beautiful, so stop out and enjoy our beautiful park. And other than that, that's all I have.
Yeah, the chicken barbecue gotta come up past the tennis court too.
You're going down Maloney Drive.
Yeah, I'm on.
Maloney Drive will be one way
Yes, okay.
on Saturday.
All right, Health Board, Mr. Similink.
Health Board meets, next meeting is November 13th at noon in this building. That's no other report.
All right, thank you. All right, Council Committee reports. Finance, Mr. Ribbon.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report tonight.
All right, Public Works and Economic Development, Mr. Lonzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Public Works and Economic Development met this evening at 7 o'clock. We had one item to discuss, was Resolution 9. It's in regards to the airport lease. We voted unanimously to add proposed Resolution 9 to tonight's agenda, and we're asking for suspension of the rules so we can pass that on first reading.
All right. Move on to Safety, Health, and Service, Mr. Similink.
Our law director has introduced the fact that he's proposed a resolution as a solution finding more people in the police department. We'll hold a committee meeting on that at the next council meeting. Our clerk is scheduling that. And you two guys and you. And we'll look at that and we'll have further discussion. You got half the hearing done, I think.
But you want the police chief
We'll
here. She
continue
knows more
that.
about that.
At the next meeting.
All right, thank you. Zoning and annexation, Cheryl.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
All right, move on to salary, Mr. Granville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Salary Committee met tonight at 6:30 in council chambers. Purpose of the meeting was to discuss non-bargaining employees' wages. We discussed numerous topics, including 6 salary adjustments for 6 specific non-bargaining employees. We discussed elected officials, raises, as well as raises for everybody that's left over that's not on that list. And I will be getting with the law director to draw up legislation to hopefully get submitted for next council meeting. I'll have another salary meeting where we will discuss it a little bit further and hope to get added to the agenda for first reading that evening.
All right,
And the meeting adjourned at 7 o'clock.
all right. Thank you, Mr. Granville. All right, Cemetery, Mr. Pace.
No report this evening.
All right, last one, contact on special.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Walker.
President. No report this evening.
All right, the visitors' comments, the floor is now open for visitors' comments. Anyone wishing to address council should rise. State your name and address and address all comments to the chair. You have 5 minutes. Anybody wish to address council? Josh looked like he was. Just kidding, I'm just
I
kidding,
tried.
Josh.
I tried.
Stay there, Carl.
All right. We'll move on to council comments. Any council member with comments this evening?
I have a comment.
Yes, Mr. Pace.
I know we've all mentioned about the Dover Philly game, but that was a great game. The park looked great. And a shout out to CJ Carlisle. He had 6 catches for under 15 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he almost took the first kick all the way. Took, I think, it down to the 10-yard line. So place is electric, and there's nothing like that rivalry. So go Quakers.
Play of the game, which well deserved as well, so yeah. All right, legislative agenda, Ms. Courtwright.
Ordinance number 22, 2024, an ordinance by the Council of the City of New Philadelphia, Ohio, to adopt a new zoning code for the City of New Philadelphia, Ohio, which is indicated herein by reference as is fully rewritten and can be viewed in its totality on the city's website, and declaring an emergency. 3rd reading.
Is there any action to take it by council on this ordinance tonight? Mrs. Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that ordinance number 22, 2024 be passed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Ripper, thank you. Any discussion by community, administration, council, roll call?
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Rippeth.
Yes.
Mr. Kreinbell.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Simmelink.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
All right, ordinance 22, 2024 has passed.
Ordinance number 26, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the sale of certain property owned by the City of New Philadelphia, Ohio, not required for public purposes pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 721.15, disposition of property unneeded, obsolete, or unfit for municipal purposes, and declaring an emergency. 1st reading.
Is there any action to be taken by council on this ordinance tonight? All right, hearing none, be held for an extra scheduled council meeting.
Resolution number 9, 2024, a resolution by the Council of the City of New Philadelphia, Ohio, to authorize and direct the mayor to enter into a lease addendum agreement with Hootie Bear LTD to increase rent at the airport restaurant and declaring an emergency. 1st reading.
Is there any action taken by council on this resolution tonight?
Yes.
Mr. Lonzo.
Yes, Mr. President, I ask that we suspend the rules on Resolution 9, 2024.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Pace, thank you. All right, any discussion by administration, council, roll call?
Mr. Lanzer.
Yes.
Mr. Pace.
Yes.
Mr. Kreinbell.
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos.
Yes.
Mr. Ribbit?
Yes.
Mr. Simmelink?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
All right, rules have been suspended. Now, Mr. Lunzer,
Yes, Mr. President, I ask that we pass Resolution 9, 2024 tonight.
do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Pace. In discussion by community, administration, council, roll call.
Mr. Lanzer?
Yes.
Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Mr. Kreinbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Ribbit?
Yes.
Mr. Simmelink?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
All right, resolution 9, 2024 is passed.
And that concludes legislation for this evening, Mr.
All
President.
right, thank you, Ms. Courtright. Is there any unfinished road business? Is there any new business for council tonight? Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. President.
I thank you, Mr. Lanzer. 8:49, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.